Hi, this is Rod Gels. This is the Rock Band Program podcast in conjunction today with We Love Guitar Nerds, Chief Guitar Nerd Kevin Neidig from Dillsburg, Mechanicsburg area, PA. Kevin, unless you haven't, everybody knows Kevin around here, but he is the acoustic guy that knows more about acoustics than everyone. So he is my go-to guy. Like, let's talk acoustic nerd stuff when it comes to recording. So I've known Kevin, I guess you sat in with we had a funk band back in the day and you sat in with us.
Yeah, Life on Mercury.
Yeah, good God. So but you're since you always had acoustic music in your life because you was it your grandfather was an acoustic was a musician?
Yeah, he knew three and a half chords.
Okay, and then he showed you those three and a half chords, and he inspired you. Was I guess that was the initial inspiration, other than like Megadeth.
Oh yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, so what we're talking about today is the digital audio workstation as being the second instrument of creative musicians, of creative guitar players, and everybody. And this is something that everybody needs to. I don't know if you need to. It's a thought. This is taking your creative thing to the nth degree. How do I once I learn how to play this instrument and create with it, the final step is to record it and to document your creativity. So anyway, that's what we're talking about today. But also very specifically is acoustic instruments, because they're the tricky animal that nobody, you know, I'm recording electric instruments with success now, but somebody like yourself has a lot of experience in the stuff in my Achilles heel. So this is why we are talking. And thank
Yeah.
you for doing this.
Oh,
So
totally.
yeah, so okay, so let's get a history of your recording, a brief history of your recording acoustic instruments, and tell our audience, our viewers, where you came from.
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm going to apologize because my heat is just about to kick on, so you're probably going to hear a lot of hissing and stuff like that going on in the background.
It is 32 degrees, I understand.
Yeah, so I apologize for that. When uh, I first started recording, I was in a band called Odie Gin, and we recorded at a studio called Rain Tree Productions in Lebanon. And I think, uh, yeah, we recorded the tape. So I don't remember, it might have been like 2-inch tape, and then, bounced down to a little DAT tape, a little,
Mhm.
digital audio tape. And I was so interested in it then. Like, I was 14, 15 years old, but watching the microphones and, you know, all the knobs and stuff, that was really fascinating to me. So I would
Mhm.
just kind of sit back and I would watch the mixing and recording aspect of it. And I didn't have any way to do it at home except for a little cassette player,
All right,
which I,
that's what I've been saying is like our first our
yeah,
first recording was the one track.
mono.
Yeah, yeah, yes, right into your Panasonic tape player or whatever.
Yep, yep. And from there, just different studios, a couple of studios that I uh, had gone into with different bands and learned from that. But then I got when I made my first solo album, I got this. I think it was a Yamaha. It's kind of a big thing. It had a built-in CD burner in it. It had a hard drive in it.
Hmm.
It had maybe 8 channels, I think. And so I would just plug microphones into that and record stuff all the time, and then bounce it down to a CD. And then I took that, and then I would just take all the tracks and put it into my computer, and I would do mixing in there.
Okay,
I didn't know what I was doing. I was like, oh, well, this sounds good.
we'll
And
try on air.
yeah, so my first Abstract and to the Point was my first solo album. I recorded it on that
What year are we
thing.
talking?
2009, I think.
Okay.
And uh In Lakesh was my first instrumental album. I recorded on that thing too.
Okay.
And
So I
and
think
so
I think it's interesting. One of the things that you said when we were preparing for this, that you would go into all these really cool studios, and you were watching what the producers were doing and engineers were doing and how they were doing, and you're being that, I don't want to say annoying guy asking all the questions,
yeah,
because but then at a certain point you said, well, instead of investing $5,000, $10,000 in a recording studio, uh, why don't I take that money and invest it into my own studio and learn to do as I go? But uh, this is investment into your future.
right. Yeah. Like the microphones that I got were a couple of studio project mics that um 2000, it was at least 2009 when I got them, and I'm using that to talk into right now
Okay.
for the video.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's all beat up, the things kind of fall apart, but it works. And they sounded good, and they were like 200, under $200 a piece,
Uh-huh.
which to some people be like, wow, $200 for a microphone.
That's a
And
lot of money.
but the first microphone I think I bought was this thing at Radio Shack with little pencil mic.
Realistic.
Yeah, you put the AA battery in it,
Yeah, yeah, yep.
That was
That
my
was my first microphone. I didn't have a battery for it, but it was a realistic mic, made to look like an SM3058. The
yeah,
It was made to look like something really a lot better than it was, but yeah.
yeah. That
So
was $30.
so that piece of Yamaha equipment. What do you and you just started off with basic equipment, what you
Oh
could get your
yeah,
hands on?
basic,
You
basic.
you you didn't have necessary. Did you have matching microphones? Uh, okay.
Oh, I didn't even know what that was.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
No, like room treatment. You can see like in the corners of my room, you can see my bass traps there.
Yeah.
So,
Uh-huh.
none of that. I just went into the basement and hit record.
Yeah.
I had
Yeah.
the songs and I wanted to get them down, and that was it. That's all I needed.
How did it turn out?
Great. I mean, you can go
Okay.
onto Spotify or Apple Music or wherever, and you can listen to them.
Kevin Neidig on Spotify or on Apple Music or whatever. It's probably is it on YouTube too? They put it on all the platforms?
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, it sounded great, but there was always, what is that sound that when I listen to the albums that I love versus, and I'll say like local albums. Do you ever like,
I
no
do. I
matter
understand.
no matter how good the producer is and how good people say they are, I would listen to their records and I'd be like, but it still sounds like a local album. Like, what is going on with that?
Yeah.
And I still haven't figured that out. I have an idea of what that is, but
Yeah.
I think it's the room. But I don't think it's the microphones. I don't think it's the engineer. I don't think it's the players. I think
I'm not even sure, because I think sometimes the way and I'm as guilty and will be as guilty as the next guy, the way we cut up our guitar tracks. And I think there needs to be some guy playing over top of it, playing messed up. Not messed up, but it's like sounding like a human being. You can have all that filler stuff, that you have chunks of things here, that everything is like pasted, right? But there needs to be a track of something just being reckless, that takes your mind off the fact that it doesn't sound like what a human being sounds like.
okay.
Man, that's just my theory for today.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm here all week. So anyway, all right. So when look, you're also a multi-instrumentalist. What musical instruments, tell the world what you play and what you put on record? What do you record?
So guitar obviously is my main, vocals, banjo, mandolin, keyboard. You see my piano's back there, ukulele. I've got my bass.
I love your New Year's Eve song with the
Oh, thanks.
it's a
I had come up with that like back in 20, maybe, I don't know, it might have been 2000.
Okay.
And every year I sing that.
Okay.
And so I
I
was
gotta
like,
transcribe it.
I gotta get down, gotta get this down because, and I would sing it for some people and they're like, well, that's not very nice. I'm like, well, yeah, but it's true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let go of all those old people who aren't your friends.
Yeah.
That's what the new year should be about. Get rid of
Yeah.
the trash.
Cut. Give him the hook.
Give them the hook.
The Gong Show.
Yeah.
So, so acoustic. When you're recording acoustic guitar, first things we want to talk about, I think, um, first of all, is the instrument itself. Maybe.
Okay, that's good.
Okay. So the instrument itself, you have an acoustic guitar. Okay. So what is like to get the real good sound out of your acoustic? Now this is all subjective. We're told, but string gauge setup, the kind of guitar picks you use, all these things are factors. What are your thoughts on any of this?
So guitar picks, huge. Like I would say even more so than the strings, the guitar pick makes a big difference. And actually even before that, it's the player because
Yeah.
I, if you handed me a thin pick and I don't know, like a cheap acoustic guitar, I'm not going to say any names, but
Yeah.
the cheap acoustic guitar and thin everything, and I'm going to play, and it's going to sound like me,
Yeah.
because because of how I have my sense of tone, the strength of my hands, and my note selection, my how I hear dynamics, all of that stuff is going to come through and be like, well, that's Kevin playing. At
Yeah.
least I hope that you would
Yeah. Yeah.
think,
At your
um,
level, yes. Yeah. Yeah.
but in terms of the picks, you know, uh, for an acoustic guitar, I would say plastic picks, all of that stuff. I don't know. I don't like the sound of that. You hear too much pick noise. You kind of hear
Uh-huh.
the flap of the tick 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 tick. I don't like to hear pick noise. It's always going to be there, but I like to keep it as minimum as possible. I want to hear the
Yeah.
tone of the note,
Yeah.
and so blue chip picks I love. I've been using these triangle. This is a new one. It's not going to focus on there, but um, this triangle one, I love it. I love, and this is the traditional one that the shape anyway everybody knows and loves. This one is 60 thousandths of an inch. They don't.
So that's the kind of guitar pick when you drop it and it falls through the cracks of the stage. You,
Right.
you ask them to lift up the stage. So you,
Yeah, and you can hear it like if I.
I think yeah, our mutual friend told me a story of that years ago.
Yeah,
He lost a pick that way at Appalachian Brewing Company.
that's right. Yeah, that was a Wiegand, I think, a Wiegand pick.
Yeah, yeah. Which are like how much are they?
Oh, they're like $15 for a pack of four.
Okay, well that's not bad.
Yeah, the blue chips are about 35.
A
I
piece.
Yeah, 35 each.
Yeah.
The uh if you've ever used a real tortoise shell pick, because they're an endangered species, and you're not going to be able to buy them unless you find someone who is getting like old antiques and they're hand carving them and cutting them, and you'll pay at least $50 for
Yeah.
one. uh they are incredible because the way that they glide across the string, it's almost like if your fingers get a little tiny bit of moisture in them, it actually makes a little bit of a grip.
Okay.
And the blue chips have that same quality too.
Okay.
And so, like, to me, the material that this is made out of, they use this stuff on the space shuttle for parts because they have to have moving parts,
Yeah.
but it's cold in space, so you can't have traditional lubricants in there because they'll freeze.
Yeah.
So you have this kind of material that has a lubricant based into the material, and
Okay.
it's crazy expensive. I heard one time for like a sheet of it was like $5,000 for just I don't know how big the sheet of it is,
Your
but
guitar pick, you buy a sheet of that guitar, and that's like $5,000.
yeah, Yeah. So the guy down in, I think he's in Kentucky, at the a blue chip place. I think there's just one guy making.
Okay, here's another question. Tortoiseshell. We
Yeah.
know how people obey the law. If we have learned nothing from this pandemic,
Yeah.
there's got to be, and I'm not saying this is right or wrong. I'm not making, well, people probably still make this stuff. People probably still break the law.
Well, the problem is if they're killing
Yeah.
a tortoise in order to get the stuff.
Yeah.
Come on. Like,
I know. I know.
But
I don't think the law is going to stop them, though, is what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean,
but you as an artist, yeah, have a choice to say, I don't need that.
I can say I don't need that. I do have some.
Yeah.
But I know where they came from.
Yeah.
I know a couple of guys that make them and sell them, and so because I know them, I know where the stuff is coming from, and it's not. I mean, there were like, 1800 year hairbrushes and clips and things like that. You can get these things on eBay, and then they cut them from there. So no tortoise is dying from these.
Okay. Yeah.
But they're a pain in the butt to take care of. There's a lot of maintenance that is going on. Like classical players, they're always filing their nails to get them the right. Yeah. That's too much work for me. but tortoise picks.
I have a nail girl.
I'm
bougie. I have a nail girl. Yeah. After all my life of having nail problems,
nails look way better than mine, man.
Well, I discovered the better mousetrap. So
yeah, you got to take a file to them, because if they'll chip if they get too thin from wear.
Yeah.
And the blue chips don't wear like that. I mean, you can. I've got one that I've had for years and years and years, and it's still working great. So, $35 for a pick, astronomical, right? But the amount of use that you get out of it and the tone you get out of it, to me, is really worth it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're the kind of person that can take care of your picks, because some people are like, oh, it gets lost in the laundry, I lose my picks. You don't lose a $35 pick.
Yeah.
You have a special place for it. It goes there every single time. It's part of it's like a violinist who has an $11,000 violin bow. They don't go, oh, I lost my violin bow.
Yeah.
It's like, it's part of your thing.
That makes me feel good about the Kemper.
Yes.
$10,000 violin bow. We don't have it so bad.
But it's your chosen field. You know what I mean? Like, you are passionate about that. So you should have these tools that allow you to express your creativity effortlessly.
Yes. Now, say you're a beginner, one of the things that I will say, you don't necessarily have to buy a $35 pick. When you're recording, one of the things that like the Oasis Wonderwall approach to guitar, if that's what you're at, the thickness of a pick does matter. The thickness of a pick you don't necessarily have to buy a $35 pick, but the sound will improve dramatically if it is not a Fender extra heavy and you're thrashing on your guitar. And it's like, okay, so you choose the right thickness for the this needs to be said. The reason we choose picks is not because we like the color.
Right.
Okay, so I like this because my favorite color is purple. No.
Right. No.
Wrong reason.
The purples are too thick.
Yeah, right. That's you don't strum. You don't do that with purple pick. You'll break strings. You'll saw through them.
Yeah.
And it'll sound horrible.
I would say that the picks that you choose should speak to you. I mean, we can talk about the nerdiness of these picks all day long. Yeah. And I'm only talking about it because most people probably watching this wouldn't even know what
it matters.
Yeah. And so when I think I used Clayton picks.
Okay.
Those I had gone from like the standard Fender things, and then I discovered the Dunlops, which I really loved. And then I found the Claytons, and they had more of a rounded edge to them. The bevel
isn't it the issue?
The bevel, yeah. And so it was like a 1.25, I think I used. And and I really love those. I love the tone that was coming out of it. And then I went to a festival, and this one guy was walking around the festival, we're jamming. He's like, yeah, I got this tortoiseshell pick, man. And I was like, really? I've never used one. He's like, here, try it. And he handed it to me, and I strummed one chord, and I went, oh my God, I've been missing all of this, and I couldn't go back, you know?
Uh,
And so like it was that search of tone. So, you know,
all right, here's a question for you, bluegrass boy. How important is a bone nut?
um I don't know. Good question. All of my stuff have bone nuts in them.
Yeah, okay. The reason I say that, I didn't know, like back in the day, I used to teach a lot of bluegrass. Like guys would come in and they're wanting to learn how to pick, and they're all very, very particular about. It's like that's a community that if you don't have the right, you don't have a Martin guitar
Hmm.
with a bone nut. That's like the country club set looking down at you.
Yeah.
So there,
Yeah.
so the importance of a bone nut is there any truth to that, and that it improves sound, improves tunability maybe?
Um, yeah, maybe tunability. The strings don't get caught in the nut
Okay.
like a plastic nut.
Yeah.
When I had a Taylor, it had what is it? Did they call it tusk or whether the graphite or whatever
Yeah.
nuts?
Yeah. I
And
mean,
that worked pretty well. And if you take a saddle, say, or a nut that's made out of plastic versus bone versus graphite, and you drop it, you'll be able to hear the tone conduction, because the plastic is just going to go like thump, thump, right?
mhm.
And the other ones are gonna, you hit them and you can just, it has a tone to it, like my Husson Dalton up there on the top of the piano here,
Okay.
the bridge plate in it is made out of Honduran rosewood, which is the same wood that they use to make marimbas out of.
Okay.
And so they make marimbas out of that stuff because the wood is it generates so much tone. You hit, it's like boom,
Okay.
right? It rings. So they use that same kind of wood as the bridge plate because they want that resonance to really go through. So like all of these little pieces make such a big difference in the entirety of the instrument. So if you had a Martin guitar with a plastic nut, ain't nobody gonna know unless you tell them.
Okay.
You know what I mean? But you might get that extra 1.2% out of it.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was silly stuff though, because humans can be silly, as we
But
know.
it's really about the player. We don't get those things. We don't get these expensive instruments because we want the audience to hear great tone. We get those things because it makes us play better.
Oh yeah. No, I do agree with that. I do agree with a lot of that. In other words, the first time I ever bought a Warwick bass or played a Warwick bass, oh,
Oh yeah.
my bass does not do that. And thank you, Matt Royer. It was a student of mine. He bought a Warwick bass. He brought it in. Oh no, you're not going to have this, and I'm not. That's not how this is going to go down.
Yeah.
So I sold everything I owned and bought my first one. I still have it 20 years later, and it's still the go-to. So anyway, I understand equipment does matter, but how much, what what is real and what is just this is what's these are popular beliefs that we never questioned.
Right.
Like Eric Johnson, okay, he knows the difference between Duracell batteries and Eveready.
Yeah.
Okay, I whatever.
But he's
But
feeling it, like if
and
he could play a
for him,
note.
yes, for him he probably knows. But yeah, as I said, so all right. So with our acoustics, okay, string gauges.
Yeah.
So the string gauges are. So I'm going to be honest with you, and you're going to make fun of me. I have light gauge strings because I've had problems with guitars becoming too hard to play. Like, so in my, since I don't do acoustics all the time, that is my compromise, and I have to get somebody to adjust it. So they're not, no buzzing and that kind of business. But
Yeah.
what do you, for the best sound? You're gonna say that I'm not, it's not hanging. It's not.
No, no, not at all. I mean, if you were, because you're going back and forth between electric and acoustic,
Yeah.
it makes more sense to have a lighter gauge string, but not too light where you get the janglies,
Yeah. Yeah.
but not too heavy that it becomes such a struggle in your hand.
Yeah. I got to the point where I couldn't play it.
Yeah.
I got to the
Yeah.
point.
So that's a totally real thing. And
It's a fickle. The acoustic instruments can be very fickle. You know how to? Are you good at repairing, setting it up?
no, I mean, I wish I was, but I don't really have the space to do that.
Well, yeah,
So
yeah. You need somebody in your life that does that.
yeah, yeah. Greg Platzer's
Okay,
the
I
dude.
agree. I agree.
Hey, Greg, fix this. All right, man.
Yeah, yeah. No, he's wonderful. He's wonderful. I also love Jeff Hostetter, though I'm not supposed to mention him because he doesn't want to be more famous. But he's famous. So but yes, but Greg is he redid my Paul Reed Smith. It's just like after like 25 years, it's like a new guitar.
Nice.
So it's like so anyway. So
Yeah.
yes. So now so what is your string gauges? How does that affect the sound?
I don't have them memorized, but I think these are both the same. 13.
Oh God.
Um, yeah, 13 is my high E.
Good Lord, man. You're a coal miner.
13, 17, 26, 35, 45, and 56 on the low E.
Okay.
Um, so I also use on my Waterloo here, and if you think $35 picks are expensive, so these strings are about 35, 40 bucks. But they're Tomastic Infeld strings, and they are probably not for every acoustic guitar, but they are silk wound, and the G string, only the G string is flat wound.
Okay.
And the low strings, because they're silk wound, they're actually like really thick. It's like, so like I said, this one is a 56. I think it might be 64, 59. It's like pushing in the 60s. So it's like really big, but it doesn't have the same tension on it.
Okay.
And then because the G string is flat wound, you don't get that string squeak on the G string that you normally would get.
Okay.
And man, it just balances out. And I think they do a brass coating on the high E and B string too. Really interesting strings, and they don't sound like the Dario strings. They don't sound like anything.
Yeah, yeah.
But if you ever want to try something that has like a really balanced tone, for like a blues, jazz, um, that kind of thing, they're really cool.
Here's a question for you. You had a Taylor at one point.
Yeah.
What kind of strings did you put on that?
I think when I had that, I was using, what were they called? They were the gold ones. Maxima strings. Do you remember those things? They were gold plated.
No.
I don't think they make them anymore. They sounded great, but they were a lot of money. And then I switched to elixirs, and then I've been using elixirs ever since then. And
Well, I think with the Taylor, you need to use elixirs.
I don't know if you
I
need to,
well,
but
I'm saying, or something like elixirs. In other words, the coated strings, the Taylor part of the Taylor sound is a coated string. What you play when you go into the music store is the coated string of the elixir.
yeah,
And then when I buy a pair of $5 guitar strings and put it on there, it sounds like a $500 guitar.
yeah,
Okay, to get the sound, they should be coated on something. Doesn't have to be elixirs, but anyway,
yeah.
that's just
D'Addario
my
makes
favorite.
a new the XL series.
Yeah,
They're coated just like the elixirs too, and they're really nice.
yeah.
Um, But another thing, just talking about strings and tone, these retro Martin electro retro strings.
That is was that Adam Levy kind of thing? Do you know Adam Levy?
Mm-mm.
I think he endorses those. He's a jazz guy. Like you'd like him.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not a typical jazz guy. He's you know, I don't know. He's weird.
Okay. But
Yeah,
they're all nickel.
yeah.
They're not
Mhm.
brass wound. So the nickel has it kind of takes that top end that the phosphor bronze or the 8020 has, takes that top end and rounds it out a little bit. And I mean, they were the strings that Tony Rice used.
Okay.
His string gauges
Now
were a
here's a
little bit
question
different.
for Tony Rice. Did he have problems with his thick 13 gauge strings? Somebody told me that he had tendonitis because of playing that aggressive with that thick string.
I've never heard tendonitis. He had arthritis really badly.
Okay, got it.
And
Okay.
some days it would kick in really bad, and other days you would see him play and it was like, oh my God, and he just rip your face off. And then
Yeah,
the next day, man, he was in
they're not
pain.
all created equal. His version of Shenandoah.
Oh man, how about it?
My played it at my father's funeral.
There's and just a quick aside, because like for me, Tony Rice was the tone master.
Yeah,
His when I first heard Tony play, I was like, oh my gosh, listen to that. Like, I never heard acoustic guitar like that before.
yeah.
And so most people will go, oh, Tony Rice, the bluegrass guy. You know, Tony Rice played bluegrass, but listen to, he's got 4 jazz albums. And I think one of them you can't get, it's not on streaming, but there's one called Acoustics. There's one called uh, Mar West. I think, well, maybe Mar West is the one you can't get, but there's a compilation one called Devlin as well that has a bunch of his jazz stuff.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Well, he was like Newgrass. It was like he was David Grisman's guitar player when he first got into the dog music.
Right.
Is it because he listened to everything?
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
not just he was not just a bluegrass guy.
Right.
So yeah, as I said, his version of Shenandoah is that isn't bluegrass. That is not. It's not even jazz.
Yeah.
Somewhere.
There's a thing that started back, I think probably in the 80s, and it never stuck. And I wish that it did. And they called it new acoustic music.
Okay.
So new acoustic music was just like what you're talking about. That's kind of the stuff that Tony was doing. Um, uh, Strength in Numbers, which was a 1 album band that was like Bela Fleck, Sam Bush, Jerry Douglas, Edgar Meyer, and
I have a CD. I probably have a CD of them.
Mark O'Connor.
Yeah.
That's new acoustic music. It has this kind of classical bent to it,
Uh-huh.
with these bluegrass instruments and other things. So Mike Marshall, Daryl Anger, they were doing that kind of stuff. David Grisman, like you said,
Yeah.
that was all the new acoustic
Yeah.
genre that they were creating, right?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, it just became Americana.
Well, everything. Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's Americana. It's like, well, that. So now they're just calling that bluegrass. It's like, no, that's not bluegrass. That's its own thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's like, well, you're calling this yacht rock.
Well, it's the difference between it's the difference between swing music and bebop.
Yeah.
This is bluegrass musicians that are saying this is not all I do. I'm exploring stuff. Now I do think Tony Rice was inspired by jazz and jazz players. So this is how he filters that stuff.
Yeah.
This is how he filtered all the incredible flat picker. Is there anyone that he had? I guess Clarence White was his mentor.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
But there's not that you can kind of trace the history of that kind of playing. That wasn't Lester Flatt.
Yeah, Tony was a giant Django fan, Wes Montgomery fan.
Yeah.
But also violin, pianists. Like, he had many influences that a lot of people didn't know about.
Yeah. Real my heroes aren't that basic. I say basic, grabbing from every direction.
Yeah.
You don't compartmentalize as much.
Yeah.
Okay, so now recording. Let's start talk about, like, okay, so you have a mic set up that this is something I've learned from you already today. Show the world your mic setup.
Well, with the stereo mic, I have a matched pair of.
And you always say, or maybe not always, I don't know. This is a question. Always want to have it in stereo.
Not always.
Okay.
Almost all the time. And this is something that I struggled with a lot, because I had gone back and forth, because people would say, don't do it in stereo, that's too much work. And then other people would say, always do it in stereo because it sounds better. And so usually the truth kind of sits in between
Yeah.
those extremes, right? So if I'm going to record something and I want it to be the showcased instrument, stereo, I want, a nice, this is up front here. And then if I want something that's like a background instrument and I want to be able to kind of like sit it in the mix a little bit more, I might just do one microphone to make it easy, and then kind of put it back. And then I'll do some other things with it to kind of, maybe not like a stereo spread, but do certain, what do they call it, like a convolution reverb.
Okay.
I use this thing called Ocean Way Studios, which is amazing. It is absolutely expensive,
Right.
but I'm so glad that I got it, because I use it on everything, and it just makes it sound like it's from in a box to, and it just kind of opens it up.
Not rinky dink, not local.
Yeah, man. Yeah, totally awesome. Anyways, so yeah, it depends. It
You got
depends
those
on.
two microphones. There's a two microphone setup that you can get at Sweetwater. That is uh the Samson. What are they?
Yeah, Samson CO2.
Okay.
You buy them, they come as a matched pair. And I was looking for a cheap pencil mic that I could get, because I didn't have any. I just had large diaphragm microphones and my ribbon mics. And I didn't have anything like this with a small diaphragm, which I had no idea how much better the small diaphragm works on acoustic instruments.
Okay.
It's just night and day. Like my viewpoint was, wow, I want this to sound warm, so I want a big mic. I want a large
So
diaphragm.
what you're saying is the Shure 57 and 58 aren't the ideal.
Well, the 57 might be good. I don't actually own a 57. I have a Beta 57,
Okay.
but with the 57, I would, if you're going to use that to record, I would get one of those, either a cloud lifter or one of those TNT dynamite sticks. Do you know what they are?
No.
It's like a little, I don't know. It's a thing you can just put it on the end of your mic, or stick it on the end of a cable, and it boosts your signal like 20 or
Okay.
40 dB or something like that.
Okay.
So with a F57, which doesn't have a whole lot of output, it really like opens it up.
Okay.
And I've heard some things done with just a 57 with like either the cloud lifter or the dynamite thing, and they sound great. I'm like,
Yeah.
man, that's a 57. Oh my gosh, that sounds wonderful.
Yeah.
So yeah, you get a matched pair, and then like $130, 139 now I think they are, but I think I paid 130 for these when I got them. But
Yeah.
and then I got this little stand, and I like this one because you can position the mics. It is a little pain in the butt sometimes to get these to work out, but once you get them, I can do like this, right, where I can do like an XY 90 degree.
Okay.
And this is nice if I
You
want
say
something.
XY. What do you go ahead?
So
Talk
the
about
XY
XY.
pattern is how the pickup range is. It's like a perfect square, 90 degree
Okay.
XY. That's what they call it.
Okay.
This is great to stick like sometimes 12th fret. I don't do that with this too much, because I like to get a little bit more body. So I'll put it not pointing directly at the sound hole, but a little farther away. Some people
Okay.
say 6 inches, which works for some things. but I want to get a little bit more of the room sound. So I put my mics a little farther away, 2 feet, sometimes more, depending
Okay.
on where I want it to be in the mix.
Okay.
But this will have kind of a, because if it's aimed at the sound hole, because these are going here, if the sound hole, it's hard to get this on the camera, but the sound holes here, they're not pointed directly at it as much as like if that bottom one were, pointing directly at the sound hole.
Yeah.
So you kind of get it spaced out a little bit. But I would just move the guitar around and listen. And especially I listen a lot to the low end. If I hit a note and it has some boominess to it, I will just kind of move it a little bit until that boominess goes away. Because that's the part, if I'm going to play bass on it, that's where the bass is going to sit. I don't
Yeah.
want
Yeah.
that. So so I will do that, the XY thing. Sometimes I'll space it out a little bit.
So
Yeah.
you're putting that on, you say the 12th fret, by the 12th fret?
Yeah, or where the neck meets the body.
Okay.
Yeah, it depends on the guitar. I mean, it really
Okay.
does. I
Yeah.
mean,
Yeah.
you hear all these things and they're just generalizations,
Hmm.
but that's why I listen to it.
Yeah.
But even something like this, which would be like 70%, this works really well too. Um, and then other times I'll do like this. You're not going to get it. It was like maybe like 120 degrees. And if I just kind of want something where I don't want to hear any pick attack, I just kind of want this kind of bloomy sound, nothing distinct. Like let's say I wanted to sit, I want to strum, I don't want that like right up front. I want my melody instrument there. So
Yeah.
if I space it out, like 120 degrees or so, then I can just get more of like the sound of the room as opposed to a direct sound.
Yeah.
So
That would be something a lot of people would do,
yeah,
because a lot of people that the acoustic guitar is a rhythm instrument. Like,
right.
and so when I say a lot of people, another thing that I don't know that you do a lot of, but putting acoustic guitar underneath electric guitar and blending the sounds of those. That's a thing that gets you a completely different texture
Yeah.
that is neat.
Yes.
That is neat. So it's
Yeah.
another thing. It's not just, we're not just talking about bluegrass or Americana or whatever, or new acoustic music or whatever. We're not talking, when we say how do we get good acoustic sounds, you can do this in all kinds of music. There's rock music or pop or whatever. Blending your guitars, the acoustic guitar being one of those, that makes your electric sound, mixing it. Anyway,
Yeah.
well, do you ever multi-track, or like, I know on electric guitar there's quad guitar tracking techniques, and not techniques. It's like, two on each side or one on each side. Do you ever is that ever a thing for you?
Yeah. Yeah. I think I did that. My latest single that I released, which is called While the Sun is Standing Still, which is on my Bandcamp page. I think I did that where I put, left and right. That's a really great stereo, like to get a nice
Hmm.
spread. But I don't know, like I think that I might be a little bit too anal for some things, because some people say, oh yeah, spread it out, and if you do something a little bit different or whatever, who cares? Like you want that kind of difference. But I hear that stuff and I was like, oh, this side is a little bit off. So I don't want them to be exactly the same,
Yeah.
but
So
but
here's another thing. When you're doubling, you want to double. You don't just want to copy and paste twice.
exactly, yeah, because you'll lose it'll phase.
Yeah. Yeah. People are like, that's a thing where people are like, they think, well, they could just copy and paste it. No, and it's, I don't know. It's not. I won't even call it the imperfections. It's the human. It's the
Yeah.
human stuff.
Yeah. Well, with that little caveat, I'll say it depends on what the part is. But if you
Uh-huh.
have something and you do copy and paste it and then pan left and right, then I would take the left one and flip the phase of it,
Okay.
and then detune it slightly and maybe delay it slightly,
All right.
right? So that you get you get a really nice sounding spread, but then when you fold it mono, it doesn't cancel out.
Uh-huh.
Like what's the one? There's a Rolling Stones song that has a piano in it. It might be Angie. I think it's Angie. So they did that. They recorded the piano mono, and then they copied the track and they panned it hard left and right, and they flipped the phase of it, and the piano sounds really wide. But if you listen to it in mono, the piano's gone. There's no piano in the song anymore.
Okay. Okay.
It's pretty cool to hear both versions of it, you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, so that's a neat little trick that you can do so that it doesn't phase out when you sum it to mono. Like if you listen to it in a mono speaker,
Yeah.
Bluetooth. But yeah, like recording those double parts, it is so um, it's good to have like those differences in the right and the left ear, because if you have those differences, it actually makes your mix sound a little wider.
Okay.
Um, and even like sometimes different instruments, like
Yeah.
a hard pan the guitar here,
Yeah.
hard pan the mandolin here,
Yeah.
or banjo here, and they're doing, it's oscillating different volumes like this, and it just sounds really nice and wide.
Yeah. 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 So, do you ever try quad?
Like
Like
two
strumming?
on each side.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
Okay. Yeah, I've done that with electric, and it's cool.
I bet it's huge.
Well, yeah, it is. It's like, oh my God, somebody told you this is what you got to do.
Yeah.
And I love it when they say this is science. This is how to make it right. Oh, okay, I like
Yeah.
that. I know there's all kinds of that's there's all kinds of other ways, but anyway, so yeah, that changed things. Hearing that, hearing that changed things. So now also things that here's something that I did recently. Re you, Nashville tuned guitar.
Yeah, check this out.
I knew you would have one.
It's out of tune, but yeah.
You get it, grab it.
Oh man, it's so out of tune.
What is that guitar? Cortez.
Cortez.
Oh, I had a Les Paul copy Cortez back in before you were born.
Awesome.
It was the best Les Paul I ever owned.
This was the first acoustic guitar I ever had.
They made great guitars. It was the best Les Paul. It was better. It was a better Les Paul than my Les Paul. That I
Wow.
yeah.
So this has a plastic nut. Can you hear it go crack, crack, crack?
Yeah. So you need to get a bone nut for that, buddy.
Yeah, it's not gonna happen. This guitar never gets played except for when I want to do like the 12 string kind of sounding part.
So for everybody who doesn't know what Nashville tuned guitars are, you take the high strings of the 12-string guitar and make it into a guitar in itself. This is wonderful. When I first did it, it's like, oh yeah, it's kind of mandolin-y.
Yeah.
It already sounds like a song. I love this instrument.
What is your low string on there? Do you have?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I bought a Martin set of 12 strings, and I did. Here's the other thing: is Diodaria makes a set of coded Nashville set,
Nice.
which I found out after I bought the. They didn't know why I was buying 12-string sets, so They may not have had it either. It was
Yeah. Yeah, these are D'Addario Nashvilles, but they're not coded. I didn't know that they
yeah.
made those.
So that why would we use Nashville? Why would we use a Nashville tuned guitar? How do you, as a songwriter, and it should be noted that that's one of your main gigs. That's what one of the things you have always done throughout the history of your music career, not even career. It's like you started out as a kid. It wasn't a career, but you'd always
Right.
write songs.
Yeah. Yeah,
So why
definitely.
what is this tool? Explain to me this tool in your toolbox.
A couple of ways I'll use it if I have a strummed guitar and I want to get that kind of 12-string sound.
Now that sounds like Wild Horses. Yeah, right. Yep.
Yeah. Having that back behind an acoustic guitar just really brings out a lot more of that high-end stuff, because I find recording acoustic stuff, there's a lot of high-end information other than the mandolin that just doesn't end up in there. You get into pop music and all these like things electronic things there you go, you put in there. And so to me, this kind of like fills out the spectrum and can balance things out. And then other times I'll just kind of do it as like a bloom kind of thing. I might, just a single strum.
Yeah.
If some things like that, and it just adds a little bit of ear candy throughout the tune. So it's like, oh, something else that your ear can latch onto that wasn't there before. I think like Nashville tuning is great for that.
Yeah. It's. I'm kind of excited about it, to be honest with
Yeah,
you.
and you can't pick on. I mean, it's not like I can go.
Yeah. You don't want to hear me do that anyway.
Yeah, because you have the difference between.
Yeah.
It goes back to the regular.
Yeah.
It's pitched.
Well, that's also the reason I have a mandocello is not. I have no aspirations to be the Sam Bush of mandocello. That's Mike Marshall would do that.
Oh my gosh,
he is that guy, but I don't. I'll stay in my lane. So okay, so mic placement. You do use ribbon mics.
Oh yeah, yep. My the two ribbons I have now. I have this Royer, which is a MK2. It's an R122. This is the powered version. You can use phantom power with this.
Okay.
You get a little bit more volume without using a cloud lifter or something on it. Okay. Fantastic on everything.
Okay.
And then.
So you use this in conjunction with the other two Samsons, or instead of?
Sometimes I'll do it in conjunction, where I'll do three. Like if I'm doing something where I'm singing and playing at the same time, I'll have the stereo mics on the guitar, and then I'll put the ribbon on my vocals. And you're going to get bleed through all of them, but if I'm just doing single guitar, I'm not gonna triple mic it. That's too much work.
Oh yeah, I understand.
Deal with that. But this guy, you can see this is my AEA ribbon, and this thing is amazing. Like the I don't know. I just can't say how great it is.
Yeah.
And they're not cheap. No ribbon. Well, there are some cheap ribbon mics out there, but
so where would you place the ribbon mic? Where would you place the ribbon mic?
That's not the
12th fret.
12th fret or no, I take that back. I take all of that back 12th fret. I usually put it right where the body meets the like here.
Yeah, so that was like 15th fret.
Yeah, 15th fret. And then sometimes I will angle the mic a little bit more towards the sound hole,
Okay.
depending on how much low end I want. That's a really good starting point for me. And it usually sounds pretty good, but
And everything is okay. So 6 inches, you start with 6 inches, but sometimes no. Sometimes you want the room sound.
right,
Yeah.
right. Yeah, I never go less than 8.
Okay.
Never.
Okay.
It's too close. I mean, it's like uh I'm going to play guitar for you, but Rod, I want you to like get this close to my guitar
Yeah.
and listen to me play. Like
Yeah.
nobody does that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even 8 inches is close, but
Yeah.
too close. It doesn't sound natural to me. I want to hear some kind of room sound.
Uh-huh.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, so
Now,
that's
in your room, we're looking at your room now. So you've put, this has been all of this. We should note that this has all been a self-study for you. It's like it's continually be a progression of things, of your
yeah.
learning. The more you learn, you put uh, insulation on.
Yeah, I first started off, I got some of that you can get these, I guess they're 2x2 foam things from Amazon.
Yep.
Do not waste your money. They are not acoustic treatment.
Okay.
They don't do anything.
Okay.
I I put them. I had a closet and I wanted to make a vocal booth out of it, so I just covered all the walls with this stuff. I'm like, the whole thing's covered. It's going to sound dead. No, it sounded just exactly the same as it did when the stuff wasn't even in there.
Okay.
And so that was a learning experience.
Yeah.
Um, if you want to pad something, physically pad something, great, but for sound, it's a waste of money. And so these things, RLX, I think they might be. That's what I
Yep.
got. So the purple ones too.
Yep.
Those are mobile. I can move those around,
Yep.
and then you turn them around. And the back of them, they have like these little baffles, plastic or whatever they are, on the back. So if you want to get a little bit more reflections instead of making it dead, you can turn them around.
Yeah.
And then here and here, I've
How
got
often do you adjust those?
the purple ones.
Yeah.
Not too often.
Okay.
I mean, they're just kind of sitting there now, but sometimes when I'm mixing, I'll put one. So I have, you don't see, but here and here I have my studio monitors.
Okay.
So this monitor here is going right back, and it's hitting that purple one,
Okay.
right? And so this one over, you can't see here, but this one over here is aimed, and it's going back there, and it's basically hitting that bass trap.
Okay.
But sometimes I'll move it and I'll stick it in that line too. So I cut down a lot of reflections when I'm mixing.
Okay.
But the back wall here, again, you can't see it, but I've got panels on the wall. I've got the bass traps in the corners,
Yep.
and and that's not an exact science. I mean, this acoustic stuff, like that is, it
That's what I'm
sounds
saying.
pretty good.
It's
Hmm.
an ongoing learning thing.
Yeah, I also
Like,
use if you know what Sonar Works is, they call it Sound ID now, but you take a microphone, a reference microphone, and in the software, it tells you to move it around parts of the room, and it's like sending out bloop, 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 through the
okay.
speakers, right? And
This is
so
what is this? Is that an app or
it's an app, yeah, and it works with headphones and it works with your studio monitors. And basically, what it does is it kind of flattens the the output, so you don't have like these peaks and valleys. There's still a little bit there, but um, I always felt that my monitors, at least in this room, and they're really good. They're not exceptional, but they sound really good to me. Um, they sounded a little bright, and so I always mixed that way. And I would go to different things to reference. I put them on my earbuds, and I just listen to it in the car, listen to it in
yeah,
my home
yeah,
pods,
yeah.
all
Hmm.
that stuff, and it would always sound different. And then once I did that Sonar Works treatment on my speakers, man, it was just like night and freaking day. I mean, some people are like, don't use this crap, this is stupid. Well, I'm telling you, like, for me, I would mix, and then I would listen to it in my AirPods, and it sounded exactly the same.
Okay.
I would listen to it in the car. Well, my car is kind of bright anyway, but but like the mixes were more balanced. I'm like, yeah, that's not what it's supposed to be. But before, man, it was like all out of whack and I just couldn't figure it out. But then
Yeah.
once I balanced those things out, huge difference. So um that's, if anybody is doing like a little bit of a studio, I would definitely invest
Are you a
in
Pro
that.
Tools guy, or do you do Logic, or what do you, or none of
I
the above? All of,
well, I used to use Logic all the time, and then Luna came out with the Universal Audio stuff, and that's all. I only use Luna now. It is awesome.
okay.
It is
When did you
amazing.
switch over?
When?
Yeah.
Um, I guess it was 2 years ago is when it came out. I started using it the day it came out,
Okay.
and just the things that you're able to do with it. I just feel like Logic is a little clunky. This has a much more. I mean, there's always a learning curve. I mean, this stuff is not like baking a cake. You know what I mean? Like there's
Yeah.
a lot of stuff going on under the hood.
Yeah.
So you got to figure that stuff out. But um, it seems a little more intuitive to me.
Okay.
More like I'm using a real mixing desk, even though I'm not. But just how things kind of are integrated into
Important
that.
to note, you don't have a mixing desk.
I don't like I have this. Uh,
Okay, which is more than I have.
yeah, and I didn't think that. I'm like, what is this? I don't. These little
Yeah.
consoles that they use in with, like, why do I need that? I got a mouse and a keyboard.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, this only has one. This would be like maybe a gateway drug into like a bigger thing.
Uh-huh.
But I started using this, and um,
Well, you
I
can go over
really
from
like
track
it.
to track. Does it move over to track, or is that?
Yeah, like I can select. Uh, you can use these to bounce back and forth between different tracks. I usually just use the mouse.
Is that for people who need to have something to press and faders to?
No, no. Well, this is automated. So if I have, this
Okay.
will move by itself depending
Okay.
on what I'm selecting on the screen. But um, it allows me to do better automation. So like if it comes into the let's say I'm doing a vocal song, and the guitar has a little motif or something that's happening. I want that to be like up in the mix. But then as soon as the vocal comes down, I want the guitar to come down. And I don't want to be like slamming it with compression because I
Yeah.
use very little compression anyway.
All right.
That's another thing
I was going to say that's another question. Compression. So you're not big with compression?
no. I use it,
Okay.
but I'm not. I almost never go over 1 dB
Okay.
of compression. Like the needle is just going, eh.
Yeah.
It's
Uh-huh.
basically just kind of like trimming off the tops.
Yep.
Um, and then I might double compress something. So like on a guitar, it'll go in and it'll just be touching that, and then I'll throw another compressor and it'll be just touching that.
Mhm.
And it evens it out really nicely. So if something is really loud, then I'll go in there and I'll just adjust the volume
Mhm.
with it. So here with this, I can just kind of touch it and I can work that fader and draw in the volumes and things like that much more easily.
Yeah.
And so even for that, just that one little knob, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's cool. And that, yeah, all this is a learning experience. All this is a learning experience. So, one more thing you suggest as far as an interface to have like a 4-channel.
Um, yeah, it depends on what you're doing. I
Yeah,
mean,
well, to
if
have the
you're
ability to have a 4-channel. In other words, you have a 4-channel interface. In other words, I'm talking to you. I'm seeing, okay, there's limitations on what I'm able to do because you're talking. I have 2 channels that, okay, you have with stereo mics, the mics going in,
Mhm.
and then you bring the ribbon mic in. Well, I can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, so it's not necessarily for everybody. That's that might be taking it to the point um that's maybe some people will never get to that point, but
Yeah.
that you would need a ribbon mic and all that other stuff.
If you have it, really, to me, it comes down to money, because
Yeah.
obviously you get 4 channels, you have 4 preamps versus 2 preamps, which are
Yeah.
double the price.
Yes.
So if you have the extra money to
Yeah.
get the four, because you're going to future proof.
And you don't necessarily have to. Yeah, I know. I know you. You're a fan of the Apollo X4.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily have to start at Apollo X4. You work your way up to it. Make
Yeah, well, I have this guy, which is the isotope thing, and it's got two ports.
okay.
They came out with a version 2. I think they cost too much. They're like $500 for one of these guys. And
What
when
is
I
that?
bought, so this records through your Wi-Fi to your phone or your tablet. This does not work on a computer.
Okay.
So
That's wonderful.
it's great. It's great because you have the zero latency with using effects. Like
What is that called?
it's called a Studio Spire, an isotope Studio Spire. It's got phantom power built into it, and for getting ideas down, this is what I use, because I can create tracks and just put things down so quickly. And then once I have that in this, then I'll go to the full-blown thing and set up mics and stuff.
Yeah.
It has a microphone on the front, so you don't even need to hook mics into
As
it.
a songwriter, that's a high-tech version of the Panasonic.
Yeah.
Right. The Panasonic tape recorder.
Yeah. Look for a used one.
Yeah.
Like I said, they're $500 now. I paid, when they first came out, I paid $300 for it.
Okay.
And during when the pandemic was going on, like big time last year, people were selling them for like $1,000 used, because you couldn't get them.
Yeah.
And for that kind of thing, if you just want like ideas that sound really great,
Yeah.
it's awesome.
Well, yes. Also, it's important to note, and this may sound contradictory, some of my favorite songs are not perfect. Now, we're trying to get perfect sounds and all that, but like Bob Dylan, John Lennon, Working Class Hero, Bob Dylan, Forever Young. The Forever Young I like is the one that sounds like a tape recorder by the edge of his bed.
And that's not it, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes.
You already get it before the YouTube. YouTube takes your video down.
So anyway, all right. Well, Kevin, thank you so much for this. We'll wait till P-Funk stops. This is live, everybody. This is live. So for guitar nerds everywhere, for rock band people, thank you. Good God. So anyway, so rock band people, we're learning how to get creative, learn how to do what we do, get creative. That's what we're trying to do here. Is how do we take this to the next level? Yeah. How do we take this to the next level? I couldn't have. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah,
all of this stuff is so, like we talked about, being subjective. I heard a recording of Sting, and it was a thing that he had done on his little cassette player that was probably sitting on the edge of his bed, and it sounded amazing.
Yeah.
Well, why? Because
it's Sting.
It's Sting. Because the performance was amazing.
Yes.
So who cares how it sounds, right?
Yes.
And so all of these things that we see is like, oh, this is the best mic. Oh, this is the best mic. This is the best DAW. This is the best.
Yeah. It helps us that you're a complete nerd when it comes to like getting your stuff to be as perfect as you can. And this is your life's work. So I see the value in that. Like, you're in acoustic music, this is what you do. So your input is absolutely invaluable.
Well, I appreciate
though it is I think subjective. Yeah. Sometimes I like to make noisy stuff too. So
yeah.
So
like my radiator. Can you hear that?
Yeah. Well, can't sound any worse than Up for the Downstroke. But anyway, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
We will find other things to talk about because this is fun.
Yeah, man.
All right. See you, everybody.